Hi, everyone. This is Elsie Kerns, your Chaos to Clarity coach. And tonight we have a very exciting interview with astrologer Pam Younghans, and she's going to talk to us about this immediate upcoming Jupiter alignment with the galactic center. So, Pam, I want to welcome you. And before we get into actually the information on the Jupiter-Galactic Center alignment, I would like you to talk first a little bit about the fact that Mercury is coming out of retrograde on Wednesday and what we might expect with that first.
Okay, perfect. So yes, this has been a kind of spectacular Mercury retrograde, I think. For those who don't know, the planet Mercury, most of the planets seem to go backwards certain times during the year, and when they're going backwards, their energy shifts a little bit. Mercury has to do with how we think, how we communicate, the information that comes in and goes out. And when it's retrograde, we tend to go deeper within in many, many ways. It's been in Scorpio, and Scorpio is always about ferreting out the truth, digging deeper, psychologically, emotionally, but bringing out secrets, bringing out hidden information. So we've certainly seen that in many, many ways out there in the world. But it's also been very revealing for each of us individually, seeing our own motivation, seeing our own emotional patterns. There's been a lot that's been kind of exposed, not in a negative way necessarily, but as a way to help us see what's true so that we can move forward with greater empowerment. So Mercury will go direct on Thursday, I believe it is. Maybe it's Wednesday. I don't have that date in front of me. But it helps us start to move forward a little bit. If we've been thinking about something, planning about something, wanting to implement some plans, we have a little bit more momentum in that regard. However, Mercury is still going to be in what's called its shadow phase until December 7th. So the shadow phase is still the amount of time it'll take Mercury to get to where it was when it first went retrograde. So it was tootling along, and I think it got to 27 degrees of Scorpio. Then it went retrograde and went backwards. And now it's going to go forwards again, but it's going to take till December 7th before it hits that same degree. So this is called the shadow phase. And it's meant to be a time of integration and processing what we've learned over the past 3 weeks during the retrograde period. And so if we need to implement something, move forward during this time, it isn't, completely a blocked thing as it might be at other times. But if we can use this time to integrate, to process, then it is supposed to be that after Mercury is beyond that shadow phase, then we have more support for whatever that project is or that communication is. So it's still a good time for us to review in some ways, not as deeply as the past 3 weeks, but still having that sense of an inward focus, seeing what's true for us, what our motivations are, and then we'll use that information to go forward.
Great, thank you. So, Pam, I want you to talk about the specifics of this Jupiter Galactic Center alignment and why this is such an important one, and also the actual dates and time frame that we need to be alert while this is happening.
Okay, great. So just writing that down so that I remember what you just asked. So we've got the galactic center. We can give it a certain degree. It's at about 27 degrees Sagittarius and maybe 5 minutes. So that's about where it is right now. And Jupiter will be at that exact degree tomorrow, Tuesday, which is the 19th. So that is when the energy is supposedly, the strongest. It is the exact alignment, but it's like climbing a mountain. We're not just at the bottom and then all of a sudden at the top, at least not at this point in our development. There's a building phase that goes on. And really the highest or the most influential part of this Jupiter alignment with the galactic center, to me, really covers at least a 2-week period. It probably covers longer than that, but we feel it most intensely during that 2 weeks. So like last Tuesday is when I started feeling symptoms. They were building all week. Still got some of them today, and we're gonna assume that over the next week, until next Tuesday-ish or so, we'll continue to feel similar symptoms and be continuing to deal with that alignment. So that's the timing of it. And then you said why this specific one is important, because Jupiter takes 12 years to go around the zodiac. So every 12 years, it's going to be at 27 degrees of Sagittarius, and it's going to align with the galactic center. But in my experience, this is the strongest one I've ever felt. And I think it has to do with many things. One of them being this whole Saturn-Pluto alignment we've been dealing with all year, that's going to kind of come to its peak in January. But that's really been a dismantling. It's been dismantling many, many areas of our lives. And a part of what I think it's been dismantling is our resistance to that next step, that next evolutionary step, because that to me is the whole point of it. And so the unsteadiness kind of in the energy field that's been created by this Saturn-Pluto dance has really created an opening then. So as Jupiter aligns with the galactic center, and Jupiter is the great magnifier, so anything it touches, it's going to act like a magnifying glass. So it has kind of more inroads to reach us. We know that when we're off balance a little bit, or we're not quite, we don't feel in control, we actually are more open to insights. And that's really what this is, how this is working. That as we're not as sure of our footing, it enables us to sense things on other levels that we might not have sensed before. So I think the energy is very strong, and a part of the reason it's feeling so strong is the lead up to this, the Saturn-Pluto energies. I think there are other things going on too, though. Just at this is a certain time in our evolutionary development. We've been through so many big milestones recently. The 2012 and the Pluto-Uranus stuff. There's just been so much going on, and it really has opened up a lot of space in us. We know that a lot more people are questioning things, and awareness is expanding, consciousness is expanding, and so this is a part of that. We're more open to the energies of this alignment.
Thanks. That really puts it in perspective. And one of the things that you mentioned was that you were just talking about energies. That galactic center tends to emit infrared energies, and you commented that you felt that this had a way of accelerating our spiritual evolution, because you're right, we're certainly going through an evolutionary process.
Right. So the galactic center energies worked on many different levels. And a lot of what I'm going to be speaking about, I've learned through an astrologer named Philip Sedgwick. He's kind of the accepted expert on the subject. So I can tell you what I feel, but I also am expressing some of what I've read from his work. So he talks about this infrared energy that comes from the galactic center, which is now being magnified by Jupiter. He said it jostles the root chakra. So, we think about, well, what do we hold in the root chakra? Well, it's where we ground, it's where we connect to the earth, but it's also where we can hold old fears, survival issues, memories that have kept us from really feeling grounded and really making a success of our lives in various levels. And so this jostling, it it can be awakening old fears, but it's awakening them, jostling them so that they can be released. And that as they're released, then there is the opening for the growth and expansion that we're wanting. And this is on many, many levels, but I think at least spiritually. Sagittarius, the sign that Jupiter is in right now, that the galactic center is in, Sagittarius has to do with finding life's deeper meaning, expressing our desire for that sense of what life is all about. And, Sagittarius rules religions and spiritual growth and spiritual journeys and expansion into higher philosophy and all of that. And so there's naturally a sense of this alignment being a part of that, helping us understand more about how this all works, helping us grasp more of the meaning of our individual lives and the meaning of why things are unfolding the way that they are, and hopefully moving into this place of greater trust and knowingness and wisdom around the whole process that we're within. So to me, that really speaks to, spiritual growth being not getting so caught up in the minutia, in the details, seeing the bigger picture and accepting a process that's going on and finding the meaning in it and expansion through it.
Well, I know that what you just talked about, that root center, as you said, deals with a level of our safety and groundedness. And at the same time, we're being, have the opportunity to open to, higher information, as you just said, and higher ideals. And I also, you mentioned Sedgwick, and I think there was another phrase that you talked about when we talked earlier, that he kind of likened this to sort of defragging. I think of, like when we defrag the computer, we get a chance to throw out all the old files or put them in alignment and then bring in new information. So how does that relate to what we're going to experience from like November 19th till the 23rd? We know that's the high period, but as you said, it's going to continue to operate in our lives.
Yeah, Sedgwick really does use that analogy of defragging a computer and really emphasizes that this is how the energies of the galactic center really work. So, and we've been talking about that a little bit already, how the fears are jostled loose so that they can be released. Well, that's the defragging process. We're making the space for that next evolutionary step, for also the information download to come in. So as we release, as the galactic center energy comes through, magnified by Jupiter, it's helping release fears from everywhere that it's stored in us. It can be in our mental bodies, emotional bodies, etheric or physical bodies. So then it makes the space, it defrags our hard drive so that then we have the space for the download of information to come and for higher vibrational energies. And that includes, higher level insights and guidance. But along the way there, we haven't talked a lot about the symptoms that are going on with this. As we talk about those fears being joggled and being released. Yes, we want to release those fears, but they've established a foundation for our lives in many, many ways. Although we don't like them, perhaps, or hopefully, it's a part of how we've defined our grounding. It's like changing our identity midstream, and so we are a little bit off center. We can feel, lightheaded, dizzy even. The main thing I've been feeling for this past week is feeling really wobbly-legged. It's like those old cartoons where the cartoon characters have really rubber legs. It's been feeling like that, and I'll get out to walk the dog and I'll think, oh my gosh, how am I even going to walk down the street? And I make it okay and good and great, and my legs are still working, but there's still that feeling. So we can feel really ungrounded right now. But I think that's a sign of some really deep, important changes that are going on. That defragging is opening the space, and it takes us a while to get used to that. And I think that's a big part of why we're having those symptoms. And then also the lightheadedness, the dizziness. If there is information coming in that's downloading, we may not be aware of it consciously. It's coming in on many different levels to us. And so who knows how our conscious minds are trying to grapple with this, trying to wrap itself around what it may be receiving. Maybe it's receiving light language, and so we feel lightheaded. There's can be all kinds of reasons for it, but I think it's all related to this whole process, the defragging, and then the bringing in at least higher vibrational energies, whether it's information or emotional support or whatever level it's coming in on.
So Pam, I would like to suggest to you and also to our viewers, if I want to say hello to Rose Testa and Carol and Marie, and I want to just suggest that something that we can do and take the most advantage of this alignment, again, beginning tomorrow, you said through the 23rd, but as you just said, it's going to continue on, is if you consider doing the figure 8, that infinity sign, okay, but you're going to take that from your heart center and you're going to extend it out to the universe, to Jupiter, that, great magnifier, and also the galactic center, so that your own body, mind, spirit can experience the fullness of this event that is opening us to, all possibilities, really.
I think that's lovely. I think that, first of all, it feels really good, just as you were describing it and I was doing it. But to have it come to our hearts, too, the interesting thing about this, yes, we've got Jupiter in the galactic center aligned, but by the end of the week, so Saturday, Sunday, Venus is also going to be aligned at that same point in Sagittarius. And Venus is very much heart-centered energy. It's what we love. It's how we allow others to love us. It's how we express love. And so to weave it in from our hearts through Jupiter, we can put Venus in there too, through Venus, Jupiter, the galactic center, and then bringing it back in. That feels really full to me. It feels very enhanced. It gives it another level. It gives us that level of that Venus does bring in. It's that kind of a softness and a certain heart opening. So I think that's really lovely.
Thanks, Pam. So I just want to review that for everyone. We're going to add in the heart based on Venus coming into play by the end of the week. And again, we're going to be using from the heart center, actually drawing that figure 8 between our heart center and Jupiter, the galactic center, and also Venus. So we can just use that figure 8, very easy. It's just a way of making that connection so you can experience the fullness of this event and bring as much new information in through you as possible for this. Yeah.
That's really lovely. I mean, it feels very calming to me as I'm doing that. And I think that's also the Venus piece of it, because Jupiter is very excitable. But Venus can be very calming, even though they're in Sagittarius, which is a kind of adventurous sign. But Venus brings that softness. It's the feminine. Jupiter is the god, and Venus is a goddess. So it's really if we want to think about it, merging the divine masculine and the divine feminine as well, and really bringing in the balance of those two into our beings. I think that's a really nice way to think about it too. The other thing I want to mention that Sedgwick says is how important it is to stay grounded during this time. He mentions that we can't just be out there and floating around to receive the information that's coming through. He wants us to make sure that we're grounded. He also says it's really helpful to ask specific questions. And then also ask for insights to know what we need to release, what we need to defrag, so that we really can see our next steps clearly and that we can walk forward clearly on our evolutionary path. The other thing I want to think about too, he talks about it being a cumulative effect. That once we start getting information through, it's like that conduit is opened. So it's raining here, Seattle area, it's raining. And so I was thinking of how when the rain comes down at first and it hits the dry ground, it starts to create little rivulets through the dirt, but it's not a very strong path and it might have a lot of little tributaries. But once a channel gets established, the water goes down that channel more and more. And, over time we could create a canyon in the bigger scheme of things. But I think to realize that the more we connect to this energy and the more we access the information that's there and the more we allow the download and the more we release through the defragging process, and we don't have to know what it is we're releasing necessarily, unless you do specifically know. And then, of course, bringing that awareness of letting go of something in as you're thinking about, washing something away or releasing something, that's great. But we don't even have to really know what it is, just that whatever's standing in my way or whatever emotional component is needing to be released so that I can allow in this information or this light or this new experience or whatever it is. So just knowing that once that channel is opened, that flow of information can increase every time we tune in.
So Pam, I just want to say that you mentioned that possibility of absolutely asking questions, being specific, and opening up to getting answers for yourself on different things that are going on. So this is also a great time to journal. And I want to suggest that before you go to bed at night, ask that question of the Galactic Center of this great alignment. From your heart, we've got, as you said, the Jupiter, the God, the masculine, Venus, the feminine, divine feminine, divine masculine coming together with Venus joining it. So don't forget not only the figure eights, but literally journal, write down your question before you go to sleep at night and take advantage of that time to let some information come through to you.
Mm-hmm. Great idea. Perfect.
Yeah. So anything else, Pam, you would like to share with us before we sign off?
I think that this is great for this time frame. We do, of course, have the Saturn-Pluto thing that's coming up in January, but we'll have more time to talk about that. I like the idea of really focusing in on this alignment, allowing it to speak to us, allowing it to benefit us and to expand us in many, many ways. So yeah, I think that's good.
Great. Well, thank you, Pam, for joining us. This is Elsie Kerns, and you're with us on Energize with Elsie, Be Live TV. And we'll put this up, all the information, and also you can get Pam's free weekly journal to keep up to date with everything going on. Her website is northpointastrology.com, and I have that listed on the information right there. So be sure and sign up so you can get that every Sunday and find out what's going to happen in the week ahead. Pam, thanks so much for joining us from Kenmore, Washington, and hope you have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you. You too, Elsie. Good to see you.
Okay, and thanks again for Rose and Shelley joining us and all the others. Okay, everyone, we're going to sign off for tonight. Thank you for being with us. Good night, Pam.
Good night.